I want to go ahead and welcome everybody. My name is Joe Cap. Welcome to National Entrepreneurship Week. Today is the fourth day of our seminar series. And I'm excited to go ahead and bring on our speakers for our urban and rural connection. But before we do that, I just want to go introductory. So Jennifer, next slide, please. So from a little bit about National Entrepreneurship Week, from Maui to Maine, National Entrepreneurship Week is a grassroots organization that really is bringing together communities across the United States. It was founded in 2006 by an act of Congress, and the goal is to really raise up voices from a broader range of communities all across the United States, and to allow communities, individuals, organizations that oftentimes maybe are not necessarily part of the landscape and the conversation, to allow them to really have a voice in entrepreneurship and tell the stories of their local entrepreneurs as well as the successes of their communities. Jennifer, next slide, please. So, like I said, it was founded in 2006 by the National Consortium for Entrepreneurship Education, also known as EntreEd, and the Kauffman Foundation, and it takes place the third week every year. Next slide, please. My name is Joe Cap, and I'm the president of the National Center for Resource Development, and we've been working alongside Amber Ravenscroft and the Adventure team to really help drive National Entrepreneurship Week back into the community, and also really drive a national conversation and dialogue from our libraries to incubators to K through 12, colleges, community colleges, universities, and really just provide a platform for as many people, as many communities, as many organizations as possible. So we're so thankful for all the great work that Amber and her team has done in coordinating and organizing all these great speakers. Next slide. So before we get started, please go ahead and just take a moment to follow us on Twitter at NatlEshipWeek. Yesterday, we actually held from 3 to 3:30 p.m. a Twitter storm, which was phenomenal. We had a ton of just Twitter activity going back and forth, and it was really exciting. And there's a number of folks tweeting about National Entrepreneurship Week, so please go ahead, and if you haven't already, please add us. Next slide, please. So just a couple of things. All of the participants will be muted upon entry. If you want to go ahead and submit a question, there is a chat function, and feel free to please submit your questions here, and we will go ahead, time permitting, and have them available and be able to address them at the end. In addition, the webinars are all being recorded and will be available 1 week after their viewing on the website. And stay tuned at the end for some exciting new plans for National Entrepreneurship Week 2020 and beyond. Next slide, please, Amber. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Nathan Oley to go ahead and kick us off on our rural towns and urban cities.
Great. Thank you very much, Joe. I'm Nathan Oley. I'm the Executive Director of the Rural Community Assistance Partnership, or RCAP. RCAP has been around for 45 years. Historically founded to help small communities access safe drinking water and sanitary wastewater, but over that 45 years has evolved to do work around economic development and entrepreneurship, disaster recovery, and a number of other activities focused on building capacity at the local level. And for us, when we talk about rural communities, it is typically communities of 10,000 or less. So small communities, we're working in every state across the country, including Puerto Rico and the U.S. Virgin Islands. And we do that through technical assistance providers and trainers that we have in each of those states to work with communities and really to try and build opportunity for economic growth and development, specifically focused on ownership. In that vein, last year we co-partnered with Joe and NCRD, the Kauffman Foundation, co-starters, and a number of other organizations from across the country to create a program called Rural Rise, which is about bringing together entrepreneurship ecosystem builders. So the folks on the ground that are helping spur entrepreneurship in local communities across the country. We held it last year in West Virginia, had 175 people from 25 states come together to both highlight the success and the programs and policies that were being effectual for entrepreneurs in rural communities, but also to create a network of folks that were doing this work across the country so that they could get resources from one another, network and connect, understand what was happening across the country, both positively and the struggles that others were coming across in trying to help spur entrepreneurship at the local level. Today, we're here in partnership with the National League of Cities. Christy, who you'll hear from in just a second, and I have been working very closely on a number of different initiatives, but really focused on how do we talk about the connections between rural and urban communities opposed to the differences. How do we talk about how entrepreneurship and economic development activities are happening across communities so that urban and rural communities are more connected and elevating the conversation around how we can bridge those gaps and bridge the economic divides that NLC talks quite a bit about. And so really happy, excited to be here today to be helping partner on this webinar, but also to be a larger part of the National Entrepreneurship Week. And so with that, I'll turn it over to Christy with the National League of Cities.
Christy. Christy, are you on mute? Jennifer, can we take Christy off mute?
Okay, it looks like I'm unmuted.
There we go.
All right, awesome. Thank you, Nathan, so much. So we've had a great relationship both with RCAP, and it's been quite an honor for the National League of Cities to be a sponsor of National Entrepreneurship Week. In the urban context, developing leaders in cities makes opportunities both for unique challenges as well as creative solutions to meeting the needs of entrepreneurs, some of which you'll hear about today. Some of you may know the National League of Cities, and for those of you who don't, we are a national organization representing the over 19,000 cities and towns across the country, from very small places all the way up through New York City. So we have sort of a charge in front of us really to help build the capacity of city leaders, whether it's mayors, council members, or economic development staff, bolster their capacity and the programs in their cities to support not only entrepreneurs, but the whole range of programs and services that cities provide that improve the quality of life and the economic competitiveness for cities across the country. At NLC, we have two specific key programs to support cities in their efforts to bolster the entrepreneurial ecosystem in particular. One is the Equitable Economic Development Fellowship, which is a 1 year of technical assistance to an annual class of 6 U.S. cities to help them pursue more equitable and inclusive economic outcomes, and that includes, of course, equitable entrepreneurship. We also recently launched an initiative with the Smith Foundation, and we'll also be bringing the Kauffman Foundation to this as well, around city innovation ecosystems, which is a commitment and support program of city leaders ranging from rural townships, college towns, major metropolitan cities, who are joining with local partners to leverage regional and national funding to support young businesses, apply new technologies, and expand STEM education and workforce training for all. Nathan, we probably should talk about your RISE program and how this may intersect with that as well. But in terms of the flow of the webinar today, you'll hear from two rural entrepreneurs, followed by two city government staff people who provide entrepreneurship support. And during those presentations, you can submit questions via the chat function if you have them. Now I'll turn it back over to Nathan to introduce our first speaker.
Great. Thank you, Christy. Appreciate it very much. And certainly appreciate the partnership that we've been developing, but also will continue to build over the coming years. We're going to hear from two great rural entrepreneurs now that are doing fantastic work in their own community. One of the things I want to stress and highlight is the narrative around rural entrepreneurship over the years. It's been one that has talked about the difficulty for entrepreneurs to grow and thrive in rural communities. And these two representatives of rural communities are living proof that great things are happening, and there's lots of innovation happening both at the rural and urban level. I'm really excited to have them here with us. And first, I will hand it over to Tammy Eckert.
Hello, thank you so much for having me and letting me participate in this. As you said, I'm Tammy, and in the fall of 2016, I opened my store, Loose Town So Peaceful, which is a quilting and sewing supply store, and I opened it in Lewistown, Montana, which is the very center of the state. It is the heart of Montana, as we have called it. Our population is 5,900 people. We are very rural. We're 130 miles from Billings. We are 110 miles from Great Falls. So next slide, please. So in the fall of 2015, before I opened, and actually you can go to the next slide after that. So in 2015, Rural Community Assistance Corporation, as part of building rural economies, brought in a workshop called Recharge Our Community, and I participated in that. And through that, they promoted entrepreneurship and jobs and networking and planning and implementing economic development. And through that, I learned that starting a business isn't just about pursuing what I wanted to do, but it was also about looking at the community and evaluating and determining what was lacking, and then filling that need in the community. I also learned that networking is huge. If you can meet and find people that have that same desire, that share a common interest or goal, that's huge. Like for me, it was meeting a lot of the people in downtown association. So, you know, driving that business to our downtown and benefiting from that. How could we do that? So another thing with the economic development, we use the WealthWorks approach to economic development, which explores 8 areas of regional wealth within a community. And then they taught us about creating value chains. And the value chain is basically a network of different types of partner investments that coordinate around a true marketability that will fuel the economy. And if you want to learn more about that, just go to wealthworks.org. Next slide, please. I've had many challenges over the last from the past 2 years, and through that, I would say I turned them into successes. And so one of my challenges, those first 2 years of being in business, in January and February, my sales were tanked, man. It was hard to pay my bills and get through that. And of course, I learned that, you know, if I just cut my expenses in the, sorry, I lost my spot. If I just learned to cut my expenses and save a little money during those slow times, for those slow times, that helped immensely. But one of my successes, which I'll elaborate on later, also helped me in getting through that difficult time. Also, you know, reducing my costs, becoming more efficient, finding ways to cut those expenses and delegating some tasks out to others. And another challenge is what products and classes and services to offer. That's always going to be a challenge for me. You know, it's finding what thing that is going to bring that market to my store. So that's always going to be a challenge. I don't know how I'm ever going to figure that one out. So I also outgrew my space within 2 years. And of course, the overwhelming workload is huge. It's, you know, 6-7 days a week, long hours. So, but through that, my successes, my very first, within my first 6 months of being open, I won a national contest for a window display that was put on, sponsored by a fabric manufacturer. And I won $3,500 worth of fabric, which really boosted my inventory, gave me a good start at building that inventory. Another success was that by listening to my customers and finding what they wanted and what they were asking for, I learned that I needed to bring in sewing machines and long arm machines and do quilting services for others. And because I did that, that has boosted my business through these slow times. It has also created employment opportunities. So I started with 2 part-time employees. I have now gone to 5 part-time employees, and that has given me the ability now to take some time off. So that's huge. I've also added a part-time sewing machine technician. and 2 contract employees. And because I outgrew my business, but because I brought in those sewing machines to sell, I have been able to expand my store. I added another 1,000 square feet as of this last December. And now I'm doing some repair work and bringing in other supplies that my customers have been asking for. Next slide, please. Best practices, I guess for me, the benchmarking is the biggest thing. Learning from and through the experience of others has been huge. I've been consistently asking successful business people in my area, as well as those in the same area in my field of sewing machines and fabric and whatnot, finding out where I can improve and what I can change. I think that's huge. If you can just keep your mind open and listen to others, you'll learn a lot. By increasing sales and developing new markets, listen to those customers and learn what you can bring in. Get to trade shows, get your name out there. That's huge. Set some financial goals. I paid off a credit card this last year. I'm working on my sewing machine operating loan, so set those goals for you. And of course, reduce your costs, become more efficient, learn to delegate those tasks out. Next slide, please.
Hi, Ilsa, how are you? Hopefully I'll throw back soon from Dennis on that, hopefully today, first thing tomorrow. So the one day that does not work for me is the 1st.
I don't know what's going on there.
First days.
I would say do your research, study your market, not only in your area, but similar areas. Ask a lot of questions, listen to potential customers and other business people. That's a huge part. Surround yourself with good people that are going to be vested in helping you make your business a successful one. Friends or family, and network with those people that have like-minded goals. Another thing of advice, always keep your ears open. Listen to those customers. I say that's huge. That's brought on a lot of good changes for me. And then the most difficult thing was that, this is the most difficult job I've ever had. I have many jobs. I'm sales, marketing, finance, and operations, and it's long hours and a lot of time, but it is the most rewarding job I've ever had, so go for it and enjoy it. Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much, Tammy. Really, really appreciate it. And it's obviously a fantastic story. You heard Tammy talk a little bit about WealthWorks, which is an economic development and entrepreneurship program that actually 2 of RCAP's regional partners, RCAC, which you heard from Tammy on the West Coast, and Communities Unlimited in the South, are what are called WealthWorks hubs, which are 6 hubs across the country that are helping communities with the WealthWorks approach, which is grounded in market-driven opportunities where you create value chains where the value and the wealth stays embedded in the community. And so if you want to learn more about WealthWorks, you can do that at www.wealthworks.org. We also, as the national organization of RCAP, have become a partner with all those WealthWorks hubs. And actually, there's an opportunity through the U.S. Department of Agriculture, through USDA RD in each one of your states, that if WealthWorks is a model that you think might be beneficial to your community, that you can talk to the state RD office. There's an application period that's open for the next 30 days or so to apply to become a part of a WealthWorks opportunity. And so just wanted to make sure everyone had that opportunity in case that was something that they thought might benefit their own community. Next, we're going to hear from Tom Makel. Tom.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. If we could go ahead to the next slide, please. I want to talk a little bit about an evolution of my family company. I'm spent most of my life as a coal miner, but the company actually started in 1934 with steam shovels from that area, from the rail industry, mining coal and shipping coal to Warren Republic Steel. So we supplied for many years energy for industry. It's a family business. We have 80 employees right now, and my father worked there starting in 1934. He died in the 90s. I bought the company, and I had to do so through a leveraged buyout, which was a big risk on my part. I bought out all my family. And the advantages I had were I had existing business, which is a good reputation, good credit ratings, But the disadvantage I had, it was big payments. So, and never is an easy time in business, but you know, that was difficult, and there was a lot of personal sacrifices in order to make those payments until I got it behind me. At the same time all that was going on, we switched gradually from the coal business to the limestone business. So we had new investment to make, new capital requirements as we switched into the limestone business. So now we have 2 underground limestone mines in Ohio, and we're starting 2 underground limestones in Pennsylvania. And limestone is used as a basic construction material to make asphalt, concrete, and we also make cement block for buildings. So the advantage we have is we're a big fish in a little market. Even though we're not a very big company, we're the largest. We supply more than 50% of the market that we have in the Youngstown, Ohio area. As our business evolved, we were in the midst of all the fracking and the oil and gas business. So as a diversification, I had a little extra capital. I started buying some extra farms. We already owned a lot of land, and as we got payments from the oil and gas companies, we bought some more lands. But the most interesting one that we purchased was Firestone Farms. That's the birthplace of Harvey Firestone. He started the Firestone Tire and Rubber Company in 1900. It's 884 acres. The developer that's bought it, a farmer, bought it and started, put a golf course in, had some homes in, and then went bankrupt. So we bought the loan from the bank and took over the project, and that's been very interesting. But the interesting part, our strength is the history of Harvey. He was equivalent of a billionaire of his age. He was a brilliant businessman, had all the attributes as Tammy described, that all the jobs that you have to do to start a business. And most interestingly, his best friends in the world were Thomas Edison and Henry Ford, and they did a lot of things together, a lot of camping trips, things like that they did together. So we have this rich history, but we have a small town demographics. We have 6,000 people in Columbiana, Ohio, where I was born and raised, and the county has 100,000 people. So as we're developing our commercial properties, everybody gives me advice. They all say, we want Cheesecake Factory, or we want Whole Foods, or we want all these businesses that are unattainable in our market and in our area. So we have to deal with that. So mostly what we're doing is dealing with entrepreneurs. We're dealing with people that, like Tammy again, that want to start their own business, and we try to help them and coach them through this process. And that's been very fun and rewarding and difficult to do at times. But I like to go through the best practices that I think that a business of any size, but particularly a small business, should follow. And the first one is to be a good listener. You must listen to your customers. You must listen to your employees. You want to understand their viewpoint and walk in their shoes. Harvey Firestone used to say that he could walk in any factory and talk to any person on the factory floor and find out if that business was making money or not. You can find out so much by listening to your customers and your employees. The second thing you need is really good accounting. You've got to know what things cost. You can't fool yourself about that. You need to control your spending, control your debt levels, budget your expenses, plan your business ahead of time. It's really difficult for a small business to borrow money today. Since they passed the Dodd-Frank rules, the problems are great with the banking industry. It's the only way you can get a loan is if you have really good, accurate accounting information and a good story that you can tell the bank. There's a lot of hoops they have to jump through to loan money to you. The third thing on my list is the quality. You have to make your product so it exceeds your customers' expectations. And in order to do that, it's important to perfect your process. You need to figure out what your process is, how it works, what each step of the process costs, and come up with a plan to maintain quality and maintain your cost structure. In order to do anything in this business, you can't be a gambler. You can't take risks. It's unnecessary risks. So in order to do that, just for example, I have never bought a lottery ticket, but I have made carefully calculated financial investments and so on in my lifetime. And so I have made mistakes. It's okay to make a mistake, but you have to learn from it and move on. But lastly, in my best practices list, I'd say you need to be honest with yourself. You need to say, will the customer want and pay for the product you are trying to sell at the price you want or need? Let me repeat that. Will the customer want and pay for the product you are trying to sell at the price you want or need? Many customers, or many businesses over the years, large and small, like Coca-Cola and others, have made the mistake by not answering that question honestly. And it's good to consult with other people and make sure that that your assumptions are correct. The next slide, please. In the process of working for entrepreneurs, I am quite concerned. This is the lowest level of business formation in our history. Why is that? Why are so few new businesses starting? Is it because of millennials, aren't good entrepreneurs in their generation? I don't know the answer to that, but I have been dealing with a number of different entrepreneurs who are tenants in our commercial development. And I'd like to tell you a sad story about one of those tenants. It was a key tenant for our commercial building, which is an outdoor shopping entertainment area is what we're talking about. And I worked with a great, honest local family, with a large family, but the key person that I worked with was a 30-year-old, their son, who was intelligent, fun, personable, a real idea person, someone who I felt could be very coachable. We spent a lot of time together as we prepared his space for him to open his business over a 6-month period. But when it was time to actually open the business and do the work, he wanted to be an executive. He envisioned his life as an executive now because he struck it rich. He was a business owner. He didn't want to do day-to-day responsibilities. Well, that you're doomed to failure if you're a small businessman and you aren't willing to go to work. But what he did is he took money out of the business and bought a new car. He went on trips. He used the company credit card for personal expenses. He told me, and I had a really good relationship with him, but he told me, he said, I did grunt work for 12 years and I'm not doing it anymore. He said, I worked so hard for those 6 months in preparing this business that I deserved to have a new car. And it was very frustrating to me because I thought this was a coachable young man. And I know how smart he was. I know he could have been very successful. But he didn't pay his sales tax and he ran up the bills and ran into great difficulty. And he put his family and his family's investment and my investment in a very bad situation. Caused a lot of family fights. I refereed some of the fights, but ultimately he did a terrible thing and he committed suicide right in the middle of all that. So it's just horrible, the things that, that the way people think today you can get into. But thankfully as the business goes on, his brother is a great manager and he went on and is running the business well. He's trying to dig out of a hole though that his brother put him in. It's a really sad story, and people have to understand it is really hard work to run a business. And as soon as your business opens, doesn't mean you are automatically the millionaire and the business owner. My last slide then is my advice. If you're really interested in being an entrepreneur or you want to understand entrepreneurs more, is my favorite TV show. It's called The Profit. It's on CNBC on Tuesday nights. It's a TV show about saving and developing small businesses. And Marcus Lemonis is a great story. He's equivalent of a billionaire today. He was an orphan from Beirut, Lebanon, that was adopted by a U.S. family. And he's now the CEO of Camping World. But the show is about Marcus going and investing in small businesses across the country and implementing his basic business plans, which are not that much different than the outline I gave you for the proper business techniques to use, but good basic business principles and what happens, and how his dealings with those owners, because the owners remain a part of it, and he tries to teach them to be good businessmen and business women. So it's a fun show. I really enjoy it very much. But thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Tom. Really appreciate that great lesson. One of the things I wanted to highlight, what Tom and Tammy both talked about, is the fact that these are small business owners who took it upon themselves, continue to invest in their businesses and find alternatives. And really that is the path forward for both rural and urban communities across the country. And in fact, in the rural context, rural residents are self-employed at a higher rate than the national average on a whole. And the more rural community, the more resilient the businesses that are started and the higher the rates of entrepreneurship. And so for us, it's an opportunity to both share the story of Tom and Tammy and the work that they're doing at a local level. But through Rural Rise and other initiatives, we're trying to help highlight those stories across the country and connect people to resources and to others that are doing this work. And so you can find that information on www.ruralrise.org. Now, I'm happy to pass it back to Christy for their half of the webinar.
Great. Thanks, Nathan. Really great insights from both Tom and Tammy about what entrepreneurs need. And I think, we'll hear a little bit later maybe from Holly and Eskridge about how their experiences with urban entrepreneurs compares to what we're hearing from rural entrepreneurs. But at this point, I am pleased to welcome Holly Eskridge, the Entrepreneurship and Small Business Development Manager for the City of Charlotte, North Carolina. Holly will discuss the city's small business resource portal, minority entrepreneur capacity building, and a new ecosystem building effort underway in the city. So I'll take it away, Holly.
Thanks so much. I really appreciate it, Christy, and everybody for asking me to be on. Good afternoon from Charlotte, North Carolina. It's beautiful, like sunny, 62 degrees here. So I hope others are experiencing great weather as well. And those who aren't, I'm thinking about you in the snowstorms. So I want to go ahead, if you can go to the next slide, and get into this. There I am. I know Christy said entrepreneurship and small business development. I've actually gone into a larger role and looked at business retention, and actually I'm managing the operations for the department now as well. But my heart and my passion totally is around entrepreneurship. And so just to talk a little bit about our department in the city of Charlotte. The city of Charlotte has historically had a real emphasis on supporting small businesses. They've done that through more of a direct service delivery, like counseling and working with partners in the community that interface with small businesses. And so while that has been strong, about 3 years ago when I took this job over, I did it with an urging from our leadership to say, look, we really need to expand entrepreneurship as a whole. I was actually chief of staff to the mayor prior to taking this role. And one of the things that the mayor at the time, his priority was entrepreneurship. And we really saw Charlotte was not performing the same as its peer cities. So we really started focusing our efforts on really growing entrepreneurship as a whole. Next slide. One thing I do want to say, I'm sorry, Christy, to talk about Christy's Equitable Economic Development Fellowship. Our city, our department was one of the fellows. It was in the first cohort. Amazing program. A lot of things that I'm going to talk about today, or 2 to 3 things actually came out of that fellowship. So charlottebusinessresources.com, this is actually a web portal that was developed to really truly help business owners connect to resources in the community. So whether it's you're wanting to start and investigate the process or to grow it, this is the place for it. Actually, the city of Charlotte funds this portal. We've made about, I can't believe this, but my power is about to go off the computer. Hold on one second. I'm so sorry, so sorry, so sorry. All right, disaster averted. Okay, so this is a collaboration of 20 plus partners. The city is actually one partner that's involved in charlottebusinessresources.com. And we actually fund this site. So we've done about $200,000 worth of portal improvements over the past 2 years. And this is just a place where honestly small businesses go. I can tell you this, I just did some data collection with the North Carolina Department of Commerce. In 2018 in Charlotte, we had over 4,000 new entrepreneurial ventures started, and those companies created 13,000 new jobs. So it's an incredible statistic. But then I'll say too that the traffic to the site, we saw 50,000 new users, unique users to it. So this is a site, we're happy to talk to anybody about it. It's something that I think today, one of my employees who actually manages the site, she has 4 telephone calls with different communities who are looking to dive in and build something like this on their own. So you've got my contact information. Please use it. We're happy to talk through it, but it's something that's easily implemented in another community. All right, next slide. So AMP Up Charlotte, we really have a focus on supporting, like many communities, our minority entrepreneurs and small businesses. So AMP Up Charlotte's a collaboration. We actually were accepted into the Living Cities Procurement Accelerator. So what that is it's truly an accelerator for cities around something that is a challenge, and making sure that we truly are extending our procurement opportunities to our minority businesses is important. And so that was the focus of this procurement accelerator. And the money, the accelerator came with some money to test out and pilot something. So we came up with AMP Up Charlotte. And what that is actually a national curriculum that we use. It's NRIs. So again, something that's accessible to other communities. And we partnered with NRIs to really look at how do we do this kind of intensive 13-week program that really builds the capacity of existing minority businesses. And what we do is we actually connect it to something going on in Charlotte. So many of you are probably familiar, we just had the NBA All-Star Game. So with this year's cohort, is our first one that we just graduated in November. We actually had them collaborate and partner with the NBA All-Star Game. So the NBA All-Star Game was there when we launched it. They were with us the whole time, and then they looked at these companies because they knew they had developed that capacity, financially, marketing, business plan, et cetera, to do business with them. So there was a real synergy there that happened. And so now we're getting ready to do it with our airport, and then we're also going to hopefully do one with the RNC when it comes in town. Innovate Charlotte, this is a nonprofit. The city actually provided the seed funding to start it. It's $500,000 that the city provided. It had to be matched dollar for dollar by the private sector. And so it supported really what everybody's looking for, which are true ecosystem building organizations that try to give entrepreneurs those connections. You heard your 2 previous entrepreneurs talking here. I mean, it's about mentoring, about networking, access to different resources, information, other companies that have done this successfully. And so Innovate Charlotte does have the MIT mentoring program, and then we're starting a new initiative called Exit Charlotte. Exit Charlotte is looking at our founders who successfully exited their companies and then now want to give back in the community. So it's giving them a place to really channel that effort. So that is what we're doing in Charlotte, and thanks so much for having me.
Awesome. Thank you, Holly. Some of you, I think on the chat function, asked about the Equitable Economic Development Fellowship. So please go ahead and ask your questions there. Happy to send more information. Holly and the City of Charlotte have been an amazing participant in the program. And I think their success really was rooted in taking sort of a hard look at the success that they were having in their community, the economic growth they were having, but it wasn't sort of reaching all in the community, and really thinking about how their small business and entrepreneurship efforts really can help increase the capacity and the economic opportunity for others in the community. So thank you, Holly, and the City of Charlotte. Turning now to Joy Miller, another participant in the program. Joy is the program manager for the City of Austin Small Business Program, which includes oversight of all aspects of entrepreneurial business training, including an accelerator for traditional small businesses, coaching services for startups and growth businesses, and marketing and outreach efforts to strengthen awareness of the many resources available through Austin's small business ecosystem. Take it away, Joy.
Hi, everyone. Sorry I'm not on camera, but you can look at my gorgeous presentation that I had to do by myself because my graphic designer was not here today. She will kill me when she sees what this looks like. At any rate, I wanted to share a few things with you all that we are doing in Charlotte, in Austin. I appreciated Charlotte's presentation. I wrote down a lot of notes. I'm going to be back in touch with you, Holly. Our program is about 19 years old, and one of the things that we have consistently heard throughout its history is people want to know how to get it, where to get information, where they can go find resources, where they can find funding. Those are the 2 biggest needs that consistently are challenges for small business owners, and ones that we try to address. On the first slide there, you see on the cover, we're part of the Economic Development Department, but we don't take the approach that because we're the city, we have all the answers. We're really doing a lot of partnerships. We try to find private institutions when we can, but certainly nonprofits in town that we can leverage. And between us all, we kind of form this ecosystem that helps support small business owners. And we're really proud of that. I think that's one of the major roles that the Small Business Program has been able to do, is serve as the convener for other resource providers to come to the table and let's all kind of collaborate on how we can help our small business community. We have about 37,000 small businesses, so we're kind of on the whole different end than some of the first presenters today who are in the more rural communities, but I think you still have some of the same challenges. There's never enough money, there's never enough resources, there's never enough time. So partnering is a great way for us to leverage, and I'm going to suggest that would be a great thing for the rural communities as well. So one of the programs that we have partnered to do is Austin Fast Start. This is a pitch competition that's for the little guys. It's for the people who haven't been in business very long. They're kind of nascent businesses, less than 2 years old. And our young chamber that comes with a lot of innovative ideas, a lot of energy, a lot of members who want to be involved in the community. They really have supported this process. We have partnered with them, have entered into a contract with the Austin Young Chamber to hold these quarterly pitch events. And we pick the topics by leaning on our bigger department, Economic Development Department, to see what industries they're targeting over the next few years that we really need to pay attention to in Austin. So you'll see that we did one pitch around consumer packaged goods. We did one on bio and med tech, educational technology, sustainable business, and we have a fashion and a mobility coming up before the end of the year. This has been very successful. I'm showing you pictures there of a couple of the events because the small business owners get feedback. They can tell if their business is really going to have traction. We give them a cash prize of $2,000, but then the Young Chamber has also reached out to other institutions in the city and has gotten other packages that they can give them in addition, perhaps co-working space or classroom time or something like that. So this has turned out to be a really beneficial thing for some new companies. The next slide. For the last few years, I think we've done this probably for at least 5 years now, we've celebrated National Small Business Week. It's the first week of May, and it's a national thing. So we also have a little bit of the leverage that SBA has behind that week-long event. What we do in Austin is instead of charging for classes or an entry fee for events, we try to deliver 5 days of free programming. And what we find is that people leave motivated. They learn something that they didn't know. They hear from a speaker that motivates them. There's something that resonates with them, and they go away believing that they can do more than what they've done already. So we do classes, panel discussions. We try to interview business owners that the community will recognize their names and recognize their story and want to hear more. And so this has been a really beneficial way for us to reach hundreds of people in the week. This year, the dates will be May 6th through 10, and our topics include classes on human resources basics or social media, the basic of how to write a business plan. But we're also going to talk to a business owner who started with a very small pest control business and now has an 800 employee business because he realized that what he was selling is trust, and he could do more things when he went to that customer's home. Those are the kinds of things that we believe our small business owners can latch onto and say, he leveraged something that I can figure out how to do as well. So we're really excited about having that interview with him. We use public libraries for our forums. We also have partnerships with colleges and universities. We have 3 in town that we've had contracts with now or recently. We work with all the chambers of commerce. So each of them will try to put on an event during National Small Business Week. We also have business organizations that are CDCs. We have a Spanish speaking entrepreneur group that will be doing a session during that week. So we try to invite all of our partners to come alongside, develop classes or events that people will want to participate during that week, and then we all cross promote. So that's something that I would say, you know, in a rural community would be great if you could partner with maybe even a bigger entity, a bigger city, and maybe events could be live streamed. But what we find is we do have a lot of interest in people coming in person, but I do think that live stream is also a great way to reach more people. The next slide. One of the things that we're really proud of is our offering of business training classes. We partner with University of Texas and use their instructors to deliver these classes. And the instructors are people who have a great deal of experience in the field that they're teaching. We offer 55 classes a year, and they're along the subjects of human resources, social media, basic marketing planning, business plan, accounting, finance, pricing. So we try to offer the basic platform of anything that a business owner might need to strengthen their business skills. Sometimes we find that small businesses actually send their employees so that their employees are more in tune with how to run the business as well. Our classes are very inexpensive. They're heavily subsidized by the city. So it costs about $35 for most of the classes. And they are well attended and we get great reviews, but that is something that we've evolved over years. So I think that that relationship and that, you know, being able to give feedback, being able to evaluate every class to see if it met the standard, I think that's worked well for us. And I think we've had this contract in place for probably 7 years. And so it's gotten to be kind of a well-oiled machine. But I would say that it's one of the best things that we've been able to offer because people from other communities will hear about our classes and call and say, can we take it? And of course we allow them to. So I know that SCORE does classes. I know that there are other ways for rural communities to get classes, but this is one that's worked really well for us, that we didn't try to deliver the classes ourselves. We actually partnered with someone that we knew could deliver it you know, under our terms of a contract. I think those were the only 3 programs that I was going to present to you. But those are, I hope that those are helpful. Those are things that have worked well for us. They've been able to help us address the needs that have been surfaced in Austin. We need information, we need education. And as I said, I think just the idea of forming partnerships is one that will serve you very well.
Great, Joy. Thank you so much. Christy, anything you want to add to that?
Nope, just excited to have both Joy and Holly on to give the perspective not only of sort of the urban perspective, but also from the perspective of how to those who are supporting small businesses and entrepreneurs, in addition to the rural entrepreneurs that we had on today. I would like to just ask one question of Holly and Joy. I think this is something I had mentioned earlier on. You know, I think you heard about some of the challenges and sort of the interesting opportunities from the rural entrepreneurs. Have you, in terms of your interaction with urban entrepreneurs, do you hear similarities or significant differences in terms of either what the needs are or the challenges facing the entrepreneurs that you serve?
I can go first. So I thought that actually there was a lot of similarity. When I was just listening to it, it made me, I'm not an entrepreneur, but just from the connections that I have on a almost daily basis with them, I hear those same things. And so one thing I thought was really interesting was when Tammy talked about the value of connecting with the downtown association. And I never really thought about that before, but I think that is something that actually we can bring back here. I'm going to actually look at that even here in Charlotte itself, because I think that actually is really critical. But I think there's a lot of overlap between the two. I mean, honestly, very, very much so.
Yeah,
So
I mean, really
it's
interesting, even to the point where, you know, sharing strategy seems to be something that's feasible despite the vast differences. Yeah.
It's really amazing. Yeah.
This is Joy in Austin. I would say that a lot of the clients that we work with day to day, we do coaching to help people get into business or to help them grow their business or pivot their business. And I would say that people are having the same challenges no matter where. When I was listening to Tammy and she did an excellent presentation, I was thinking, you know, she's learned how to be resourceful, how to cut costs when she needed to, how to be efficient. Certainly those are things that we would hear, you know, people need to learn how to do better here. And then there were some, and Tom, I think that they were both spot on with things that we hear from customers here. Every problem is not going to be identical, but I do think that the life of a small business owner is kind of the same, no matter where they're living. We deal with traditional businesses more than technology businesses. There is a huge technology presence in Austin, but they kind of have a whole different ecosystem that they're working with for the most part. So I would say our businesses do mirror a lot of what Tom and Tammy said.
So let me just weigh in here. This is Joe Cap again, just to kind of add on to what you all are saying. I think there are a lot of similarities, having worked in both rural communities and urban, and a lot of work in Appalachia. And as part of Rural Rise, we found a number of things that I think are probably just a little bit unique, and something for, I think, a lot of the city folks to just be mindful of. That one of the things that's often taken for granted in our urban communities that can be a challenge in rural communities is access to broadband and internet. I know that can be an issue associated with urban cities as well. But in many cases, you may have people who need to drive 20, 30 minutes in order to be able to gain access if they live in a rural community or it's very mountainous. Transportation and access to transportation is obviously a big difference for people in rural communities. So when they're thinking about starting a business, the ability to be able to connect with transportation routes and stuff like that is also a considerable difference. But one of the similarities that came up as part of our findings from Rural Rise that I think most people will probably find very interesting is that there needs to be a bit of a simplification and maybe a standardization around entrepreneurship language, that a lot of the terminology and the words that are being used oftentimes are escaping people, and maybe people aren't necessarily exposed to that. So when you talk about, for example, venture capitalists or fundraising or FOMO or the array of topics that come up with regards to entrepreneurs, people may not necessarily associate that with some of the things that they need to be doing or engaging in. And so I think one of the commonalities that I've seen, particularly with urban and rural communities, is the language around entrepreneurship that can be oftentimes complex, confusing, and not necessarily make sense for people who are spending a lot of time trying to build and grow a business. So those are just a couple of areas where I think that there's some commonality, but particularly around the language. I think that there's opportunity for all of us in this space of ecosystem developers and builders to really help with those conversations to make the entrepreneurial opportunities less mysterious and more accessible for all communities. Any other thoughts or questions? Nathan, Christy, anybody else? We have a couple more minutes here, and then if not, we will transition to Lisa. Any other thoughts?
I just want to say thank you for the opportunity, Joe, and to Amber. And obviously, it's great to work with you, Christy, and the National League of Cities. And so appreciate the opportunity. And thank you again, both to Tammy and to Tom for participating today.
Great, thanks. Yeah, same here. Of course, honor working with all of you. Special shout out to Joy and Holly for joining us today. Thank you.
Thanks for having us. Appreciate it.
So let me just go ahead and conclude here with a couple more slides. If you haven't done so already, please follow us at National Entrepreneurship Week. on Twitter, and continue using the National Entrepreneurship Week hashtag. Next slide, Jennifer, please. Tomorrow, go back one more. Tomorrow is an exciting array of federal support opportunities for entrepreneurs. So we have arranged a host of federal agencies, and we're happy to report that the federal government, it does not look like there's going to be snow in Washington, D.C., and it does not look like there's going to be a shutdown. So I'm excited to go ahead and announce we have a number of agencies coming to the table, including the U.S. Department of Commerce, the Small Business Administration, the National Institutes of Health, the U.S. Department of Education, the Appalachian Regional Commission, and, drumroll please, and NASA, all coming to the table tomorrow to talk about access for entrepreneurs and programs that are provided by the various agencies. So that should be actually a really fascinating presentation of the array of agencies. And in addition, we'll also have the Center for American Entrepreneurship talk a little bit about national public policy on those pieces. During the course of this week, we've had a range of organizations come to the table, including the K through 12, the community colleges and universities. We've had libraries, we've had accelerators, folks from the SBDCs and chambers of commerce, and then tomorrow we'll be closing out, as I mentioned before, with the federal government. So we're super excited about tomorrow's presentation and appreciate all of our wonderful speakers and Nathan and Christy for you guys participating. Next slide, please. So for those people and their organizations that are interested in helping put together ideas for National Entrepreneurship 2020, please go to the website and submit information. We're setting up two distinct pieces of this. One is an advisory board, primarily comprised of nonprofit organizations and organizations that are seeking to go ahead and really promote entrepreneurship in communities across the United States, whether it be through particular industries or through particular demographics. And so we really want to expand the types of programming and activities next year. In addition, we're also arranging a state ambassador program to have a person from each state represent their state and help drive and become a champion within their state. So those are the two pieces for 2020. Feel free to go ahead and sign up on our website. Next slide. So thank you again to all our speakers. Happy National Entrepreneurship Week, and thank you to the League of Cities and the Rural Community Assistance Partnership for all their hard work in helping promote entrepreneurship within communities and the collaboration that continues to take place. Thank you all, and happy National Entrepreneurship Week.
Great. Thank you. Yes.